So I recently did an overnight trip to try to go mule deer hunting. While the hunt itself was kind of a bust, I do think there's some value in sharing with you what my sleep system was that I took with me and used on a quick turn adventure like this. And so I think for a lot of dudes, there's this middle ground where you don't want to take a bunch of camping stuff with you. Let's say you're doing a weekend with your friends in the desert or in the woods, or you're doing a backpacking trip, or you're going on a hunt, and you kind of just want something portable, easy to set up, easy to tear down. And so what I'll do is I'll go over what I personally use, with, spoiler alert, the centerpiece of it being the USMC Bivy system. I've used this in the winter, I've used it in the spring, I've used it in the fall. I'm excited to share it with you, and hopefully you take something away with it. So my name is CT. Welcome to the Truth and Freedom Ministry. Unsurprisingly, one of the more important things that you're going to need is a pack, especially if you're going to be backpacking, no duh, or even if you're going to be backcountry hunting, and you're going to need to take everything with you at a given time that you're sleeping with. If you're going to be just kind of going to a spot, doing a weekend with the boys, maybe this is a little less critical, but in my opinion, still important. So this is the Tactical Tailor Malice pack. I'm not going to do an entire overview of this pack, but it's great. I've been running it for about 2 years now. I do love it, and it has everything that I need. And so we'll do a breakdown of everything that's relevant to the sleep system. Foundationally, I kind of live and die by my square footage and my footprint that I have on the ground. So even if you're sleeping out of a bivvy, you essentially still want a tarp or a poncho or something to kind of keep your floor space weatherproof, and just be able to keep you organized. And what I have here is an army surplus poncho, and this kind of just stows in the lid of the Malice pack right here. And this is what I personally use and what I used on the most recent hunting trip. Of course, this is the legendary ACU. It's kind of crazy to see that it sort of works as a camouflage right now. On the backpacking trip that I did, I actually used a tarp and I just shoved it in the frame of the Malice. But for the sake of trying to keep things minimalist, I just keep the poncho in the lid, especially if obviously it rains and you have to use it as an actual poncho. But it works for a good footprint. You can see I also don't use stakes when I'm trying to use this and I'm worried about wind. I kind of just put heavy things, typically rocks. I can use obviously the Malice pack itself for one of the sides, but you kind of just work with what you got. A couple critical things that are not directly sleep related that I always keep with me is a headlamp and either a beanie or, like a balaclava. And so the headlamp, I honestly can't tell you how many times I've had to set up my sleep system in the middle of the night in the dark, and it's really not fun to do that using a lantern or using your phone, whatever that looks like. And so having the headlamp is just so convenient because I typically am setting this stuff up after the sun's already down. Two other items, whether it's a beanie, and preferably like a nice thin beanie, something that's insulating like this Kuiu one, or balaclava. When I'm in the bivvy, a lot of the times it's very cold. I need to keep the vent open to be able to breathe. And so that makes my face cold. The rest of my body might be cozy, but my face gets so chilly, especially when you need to have somewhere to be able to breathe and not make your entire bivvy a sweaty mess. So being able to kind of put a balaclava or a beanie on is nice. Sometimes if I forget the balaclava and I'm doing with the beanie, I literally have the beanie covered all the way down to like my nose or just barely so I can breathe. So take that for what it's worth. So opening up the Malice itself, two of the things that I keep initially and right up top is a Woobie. Now this is the USMC Woobie. I like it because it's got the zipper on it, and so I tend to use that, and you can kind of use it as a light summer bag or a makeshift sleeping bag. And then right off the beat, I also have the bivvy itself. And so why do I keep these things right in there initially is because the bivvy can sort of act as an initial waterproofing layer for anything that's in the pack. It can kind of sort of take the brunt of any rain or snow initially. And I like to keep the Woobie available because if I'm kind of stop and going, or maybe things are getting cold, maybe I'm just settling down and hanging out on a camp chair, I kind of want to be able to grab this right away. Now beyond those two, if you're going to find, and kind of what the bulk of the items are going to be, is in this Sea Line USMC dry bag. And as you can tell, I'm clearly a fan of USMC surplus gear. I think personally they're the most creative and some of the best value when it comes to surplus gear. And for whatever reason, maybe it was because I was in California and, you know, there was a lot of former service members there, you can get it in usually pretty good shape. So within this USMC dry bag, I'm going to be keeping a shite ton of stuff. I'll keep an inflatable pillow. I'll keep my sleeping pad, a Cetus Summit insulating bag, and my sleeping bag. So all of that stays in here because I need to keep it all as dry as possible. All right, so your tarp's up. You've already pulled out most of your stuff out of your dry bag. What are you doing next, right? Like I am personally pulling out my sleeping pad, and I tend to go with an inflatable sleeping pad just because it tends to be more comfortable. When I did the backpacking trip, I needed to use one of those, you know, Z-frame kind of foam ones just because it was too risky to go and potentially have this deflate while I'm on the trip, but it was significantly less comfortable. At this point, I'm pulling out my bivy. I like to inflate the pillow and the sleeping pad before I do the bivy because it's a hell of a lot easier to be able to put into the bivy compared to putting in just a floppy, you know, flaccid sleeping pad and then trying to inflate it when it's in your bivy. So what my next step is throwing out the bivy. You know, as I said, this is a USMC bivy, and I'm simply just gonna stuff both of these in there. Fortunately, this USMC bivy is just a 2-zipper system, so it's really easy to just unfold like that. There is also a set of elastic poles that are in here, so while it's easier to kind of mold and make packable, you know, when you are getting your stuff set up, you know, you can kind of shape it so that it's a little more campish and you have some space away from your face. Space away from your face. One thing to note is that there is this zipper system that's right at the face of the bivy. Now you can unzip, you know, one or both sides of these, and that's gonna open up to the mesh system that I was talking about. Everything's a system. Every video, there's always got to be a system. But yeah, it opens up, you know, you can basically have this mesh. If you're buying surplus, really high likelihood this is just completely chewed up. But as you can see, I have a pretty good condition one here. So I like to keep this open because if I'm trying to sleep in this, and let's say it's even still, you know, cold weather, I start to just make this a humid mess because I'm typically well insulated in there, so I could even break a sweat. And then if I don't have anywhere to be able to let out the condensation, it's all just gonna build up and become very soupy and not a fun time. So, got my bivy, have my sleeping pad. Now it is simply time to do what all men love to do the most, which is go to sleep. Okay, so I shoved it in there. Wrapping the whole thing up with a bow is the actual sleeping bag. This is my Kelty Cosmic 20-degree bag. It is down. I would say I recommend this bag. It's maybe a little outdated. I bought it, you know, maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago, and it's a 20-degree bag, and the 20 degrees is for survival, not comfort, so keep that in mind. And there's a couple things I'll talk to you about as far as adding to your main bag. But hasn't been washed in a long time, probably has a lot of oils in it, so I'm probably overdue for a cleaning. But really, I just shoved the bag in there. I keep the sleeping pad in there, and I put the bag on top because I already have the bivy in there underneath my sleeping pad, and I think that generally works pretty well. So really, it's just a matter of pushing it all in there and then keeping the actual mummy bag right there. You know, I can throw my sleep pillow right into the actual mummy bag, then it's really just jumping right in. So jammies and variables for winter. As far as variables for winter, I can generally just get away with using this Woobie within the sleeping bag, throwing it over me, even over the sleeping bag, just in the areas that I feel cold, and that keeps me very nice and comfortable, you know, down to like that 30-degree mark. When I do need something more or just something different, there is this Sea to Summit liner. This is their Reactor Extreme. I can't remember how many extra degrees it buys you, but it's a really thin layer. Like, I'm not going to take it out right now, but it's not a lot to add, and it's not a lot of weight. And so the upside of having something like this, or the Woobie for that matter, is that you could use either of them in hot weather. So let's say you still want to use the Bivy, but you really are worried about overheating. Go with something like this instead of your main sleeping bag. As far as jammies go, always end up having some underlayers. These are like, you know, military surplus silkies. They're just really cheap and affordable. So these are, you know, 20 bucks maybe for the set. And on the most recent hunting trip, you know, we were sleeping in 30th degree weather. I just had these with the Woobie on there, and I was nice and comfortable. These are another set of garments. These are from Outdoor Research. These are their merino wool base layers, and they are more of a thicker, like, winter base layer. And so stay tuned probably for like their Black Friday sales or for their holiday sales, because you can score a really high quality set of these for not that much money. Okay, you guys just get a fun little outro. There is no verse of the video for this one, but I just wanted to say that I am amazed at the outpouring and support that everybody has shown to this channel. We're over 4,000 subscribers, which is definitely far and above what I thought I was ever going to get. Especially, you know, within less than a year. Maybe I just have low expectations, but it's truly remarkable, and it isn't something that I take for granted. And so there's a lot more to come at the center of it. I would encourage, if you're doing any of this type of stuff, just try to do a Bible study at least one of the days that you're having fun and doing all of this out and about stuff. It's so easy just to go out and LARP in the desert and then shoot the entire weekend and have fun, but try to fit in an intentional time. I know with dudes it's kind of reluctant to just, you know, be vulnerable and put yourself out there, but there's probably people that you're with that are struggling. They're going through hard stuff, right? Who knows what it could be. But the last few years that I did a lot of this stuff, I was going through some of the hardest times of my life, and some of the stuff that I remember the most was the brothers that I was with on the weekends that I was able to take off and just have community with. So the entire thing and reason why I'm trying to share this is because I just want you guys to build community and to do goofy crap like this. I'm literally out in the middle of public land doing this for you all. So this is going to maybe be one of the only times I say it, but go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. So I'm going to get some rest. I'll see you in the next one. Oh.